Okay. Everybody's coming. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Ernesto, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, Jim, continue, please. We cannot hear you.
There we go. I unmuted. It happens a lot. Anyway, as you were asking me earlier before the end of the break, the name of the station is WLS in Chicago. I can give you the name of the website and you can write it down and you can find out where to
Yes.
go. Yes, I know you want to do that, yeah, because not everybody can catch the show live. It's WLSAM.com. Okay, WLSAM.com is the website, and there's a place called The Way Home. That's the name of the show, and they have a whole list of podcasts of all the episodes that we did. So you just click on that and click on a particular episode, and you'll get to hear me and then my friend Laura each and every time you do that. So I think I'll enjoy.
Is it that one? WLS.com?
WLSAM.
WLS.com.
AM.com. AM. A as in Mary, A as in Apple, Mary, M as in Mary.
WLSAM.
AM.com.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I get it. So we go into the internet, we press this site, and we'll see your show, right?
Yeah. You'll hear the audio. You won't see like any video. You'll just get the.
Just for Sundays or
Well,
all the
Sundays.
days of the week?
Sunday airs live, but you can catch it anytime. So if you miss
Okay.
a show, they'll download the episode within, I guess, maybe 3 days. Usually, I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, usually within a few days they'll get it up. But you'll see plenty of episodes because we've been doing it for a while. I talked about like we had Todd Rundgren, the great singer. A lot of people have heard his work. He's one of the famous people we've had on the show. That's one of the names that really jumps out for me. But we have a whole variety of topics that we cover each and every week. It just depends on what my host does because she kind of determines who it's going to be. But I help her get the guest occasionally.
Okay.
Jim, during the show, the people can call you and ask you questions or?
No, well, when we were doing the show out of Connecticut, actually, when we started The Way Home, it started in Connecticut. We actually did take calls when we had, let's say, a psychic on. They wanted to get a reading for that, but most of the time we didn't really do that. We don't really take calls on the show because it's just a lot. We pre-record during the week, and they have to package it. They have to put the commercials in. They do all that, send it out to Chicago, and then you hear the finished product. I don't have anything to do with that part. I just do like what's in the studio. The engineer does all the editing, and I admire anybody who can do a skill like that because that's something I tried to do when I started a podcast years ago. A lot of cutting and pasting. Yeah, but no calls. No, it's not live.
Okay, but have you worked in a show where you receive calls and you have faced difficult situations where the people call and give you a bad opinion or things like that?
Well, I've done some talk shows, but I wouldn't say I took calls per se. I think I mean, I did a whole news block, I guess, at the Greenwich station when I first started, and even after that, it was like a 3-hour block. I mean, if we take any calls, like I would take, let's say there's a traffic report. I have done some on-air live interviews if I had a particular guest. I think one station I worked at, I'll give you an example. It wasn't a listener's call, but let's say we would have a live guest. We would do it like a chat room. I guess that's one way I would describe it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really had done many situations where I took calls and answered questions. It's very common, yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's difficult. Those kind of shows where you have to deal with the listening comments and sometimes bad words and.
Well, I haven't had to worry about that. I'm very fortunate I didn't have to do that. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yes.
Here in Colombia, there is the most famous radio station is La W, and they're talking about news all the time. And what I can feel is that, for example, companies pay the news, the radio station, in order to quiet some news or in order to enhance another news. So maybe, for example, if they're talking about political people, they say if they did something wrong, sometimes they don't say anything because they have been paid for be quiet. Uh, have you that's happened in the United States, I think.
Well, I mean, I remember when I started all those years ago, I mean, they had something called the fairness doctrine, if I remember correctly. I don't think they do that anymore. You got to get both sides of the story during, let's say, a political season. Yeah, I remember during election season, that was hard to deal with because you had to get like one candidate and then another candidate. Yeah, that's something I had to deal with, but not to that degree that you were asking about, though.
Yeah, because in sometimes you feel this is not the truth. They show what they are interesting to show the audience, no?
I guess that would be like maybe like the big networks would probably do that, but I mean, I never worked at a network per se, but they tend to do that. I mean, you know, some networks have their own agenda. They say they're fair and balanced, but they really are not. Unfortunately,
No.
I go back to the days when, let's say, you know, the news anchors like a Walter Cronkite or something like that growing up. I mean, you know, you could trust them. It wasn't an agenda, and now it's all about, you know, being entertainment. It's the lines have been blurred between news and entertainment. It has really changed. That's one thing I got to say I do miss about the news business is it was so much different back then than all those years ago.
And how hard is to have your own radio show?
Well, I guess if you get a sponsorship for it, if you can find people that can help sponsor your show, I guess, yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you have connections, like if you take an idea and, you know, kind of do the groundwork for it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're a friend of mine is starting a podcast hopefully pretty soon, and we're trying to figure out how to do it. The elements, music, interviews. The only reason we haven't started it because of the pandemic. Yeah, but it really depends on what you want to do. If you have a particular topic in mind, or if you have a particular audience, you got to do some research before you do that, and then just really make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a plan and just put that into action.
Okay. And do you have a special method to obtain some data from who is following your show?
Oh, well, I think we should, it speaks to the social media aspect, because I should get into that a little bit more, particularly since I've been doing it with this show. I have Facebook and Instagram. I don't know if you're all on social, but social media, I think, is very important for a lot of reasons now, because I think the more followers you get to your page, I think that also helps with the listenership, because you're trying to appeal to really a broad audience. It's not just one particular city or state. With the power of social media, and this is what I appreciate. You know, like my Instagram, we have a show page, which I work on. I'm the administrator, and I can post, let's say like tonight, for example, I'm going to do this, and I'll put it up there, and you know, my page is public. The show page is public, and anybody can check it out. They can like it. They can go to the link and see what that show's about. So I think social media to me is a pretty good barometer about, you know, who's listening. And I think I guess there's some research is saying like how many downloads you have. So let's say like if you're on a particular streaming service, like say like Buzzsprout, let's say you get 2,500 downloads in a few months. That's good. That's like ratings. So I don't know really. I can't say like for this show like how many listeners we have exactly. I can't speak to that part, but I do know is that there's a possibility we might be on some other stations. I was hoping maybe we'd syndicate this year. That may happen actually. We may go on the West Coast. So what that means for me financially, I don't know. But that if we can do that, that would make me happier because we can get even more listeners. So I just can't put a number on it or even a ballpark figure on that. But yeah, I think social media does factor into that. I really do.
Okay. And how many people are involved in this show?
In this case, just me, the main host, and the engineer. Really, just the three of us. And yeah, it's a small, tight knit group. You know, as I said, we have our own show page. My host has been doing radio almost as long as I have, pretty much. She's living in Indiana right now. She used to live in the New York area. She did voiceovers. In fact, if you like in the movie theater, she used to be. I remember her voice. Like she would do a lot of voiceover work. I knew the voice. I didn't know the face necessarily, but I think she did something called Screen Fan or something. Like she would do the narration. And I'm in the movie theater, and I said, I know who that is. That's Nora, my friend. Yeah, so I kind of knew about that, but yeah. I tried to get into voiceovers. Unfortunately, a good friend of mine just died recently of COVID. Rest in peace. She wanted to get me into voiceovers, or at least teach me how to do it. So I've learned some things from her. And she was one of my inspirations, at least on the voice acting side in theater, where I had two others that were inspirations in the actual broadcasting side. So I mean, there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of components to this. I mean, so if you're interested in doing voiceovers, whatever it is, but I mean, but your audience, you gotta have that right target audience so you know who you're talking to.
And a very silly question.
Yeah, that is a silly one.
Do you need a special voice to work in a radio show? Because I told you this because I hate my voice. So I'm not sure if I will be able to work in a radio show.
Well, I mean, it really depends. I mean, I can put it this way. When I was in broadcasting school, like if you had like an accent or something, it's called a regionalism. That's what they told me. I used to live at Long Island, New York, and I had an accent, and I had to learn to lose it. Yeah, I don't know why they make such a big deal with that, but yeah, I mean, somehow you have to learn like the dialect, the inflection, the pacing. So no, it's not a silly question at all. I mean, you can get some voice training and just learn your skills and hone your craft and what you're comfortable doing, your pacing. So I don't think it's really, I don't think it's as long as you don't sound like they have that regionalism. I don't know why that's an issue, but they want everybody kind of to sound the same, like they're from the same part of the country. But yeah, I can see that, but it took me a while to figure that out why they told me about that.
No, but I think I can't tell the difference because sometimes you listen to people that the voice is kind of boring. It's always the same. Your voice, Jim, is very enthusiastic. It's like this, very it's enthusiastic. So you have to be aware all the time because it's with a lot of life. So I think that's make the difference, no?
Well, I have to admit, coming into this forum, I said, I hope I don't put anybody to sleep tonight.
No.
Nobody had done that.
I believe your attitude is the most important part of this.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's your point there. Yeah, I mean, it's like there are a lot of different personalities, but I mean, we want to make our show fun. We want people to listen, and we want them to tune in every week.
You keep the audience interesting, I think, because your voice is fun. Is I don't know, but sometimes when you have when you are in a class and you have a teacher, and sometimes you get bored, and because their voice is kind of boring, but your voice is.
Ernesto,
are you listening, Ernesto?
We better share teachers that are probably boring, right?
What?
No, I mean, we didn't have any really boring teachers at Cushing, and we were there. I mean, they were all really good in their own way, and I had my favorites. You had yours, right? I mean, if they don't bore you, then you're going to learn something here. You got to make it interesting for the listener, in our case, or for a student when you're a professor. That's also important. Your presentation means everything. How you present it, creativity. That's something else that we emphasize. Not only in my field, but I mean that just goes for anything. Creativity is a wonderful skill to have, whether it's social media or doing what I do on the air. It does mean something. Yes.
I just want to say a little thing to Antonio. Antonio, I don't think that you have a bad voice. I don't know why you say that about yourself.
I know.
Nice.
I don't know, but
nice
I really hate my voice.
It's not fine. No, I mean you speak well.
Thanks.
I think he could do his own show. What do you think, Ernesto? I think he could do it. I mean, if he wants to be an air personality, or it sounds like he has the desire to do it. And I think that's something you can't teach. I mean, if you have the desire, that's something, as I said, that's within you. You've got the power for that. You can't teach desire. And so if you want to do it, I mean, you go for it. You be you. Do that.
But when you listen to your voice, you think your voice is nice? Because I understand what you say, ACL.
Antonio. Don't worry.
When I listen to my voice, when I record,
ACL.
I don't like it. I don't like the way I sound. But
Yes, it's the same for me. I don't like when I review all my conversations. I don't like my voice.
neither do I.
I don't like to listen to myself either. Unless I
don't know if the same happened to everybody, but I understand what you mean, Antonio.
am my own worst critic sometimes. I do admit that, but
I do like your voice, Anna, and I do like the voice, Antonio.
yeah,
Okay.
she has a great voice too.
Otherwise, I would tell you, like for example.
Yeah, I mean, you're the first.
There's a lot of girls that have a screaming voice, like it feels terrible.
Yes, but it's not
Yes.
your case, and it's not your case neither, Antonio. You have a cute voice, no?
I believe in warm and friendly. That's
Good enough for the radio. I know that, no? But
No, not for the radio.
you do it very well.
But it's okay.
Mhm.
Oh, I see you posted the link there in the chat there. Yeah, the way home, WLSAM.com. Yeah, you got to put the AM in there. It's WLSAM.com, not the slash. No. Yeah, it's the .com.
Yes, no, I already entered to the website.
Did you get on there? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I saw that you work with the Bruce and James show.
Well, I mean, I don't really actually work physically with them. I mean, there's just other shows on the air. Laura's the one I work with. That's the magical thing. You don't know where the show's actually being recorded from. I mean, we're on in Chicago, but we do it out of another station. You can get away with a lot of things in radio. You really can, because they don't know. They're just hearing the show. They don't know they don't really know we're not actually in Chicago, but we want to tell them we are. I mean, it's the magic of radio. Is it correct?
But the radio station is in Chicago?
Physically in Connecticut. It's in Connecticut.
In Connecticut, okay.
Physically there.
But you are in Chicago?
Yes, we come out of Chicago, and I was saying earlier, I'm hoping maybe we'll be on some other stations on the West Coast this year. That's what my friend was telling me. I said that would be great if we can maybe get some syndication in some way. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm praying for that.
Jim, have you ever thought about acting?
Oh, I got some acting. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Because I think you will be a good actor too.
I've actually done that. Very good point. I didn't even talk about that. I've actually done some performances. I mentioned my friend who just died of COVID. She got me into voice acting, but also I got to do several productions with her, both on and off stage. I've done Grease. I was Vince Fontaine. I think maybe you know that character, right? The DJ. And I worked behind the scenes. I did Pippin. I was able to do both sides of it. I mean, I love the performing aspect. Yeah, I did those. I think the first time I was in theater, I think was summer camp in about the 70s. We did Grease. I was Vince Fontaine then. And that was my first taste of actually being on stage. And then later, I guess in the 90s, I did it a couple of times. But yes, thank you. I mean, I had a chance to do some acting, and it was really a lot of fun. But I had no singing voice, though. But it was a lot of fun.
You can make a movie with Friedman.
Did you watch that episode? What he did with Law and Order? I did. He was great as the lawyer on that one. He's I know he does real estate, but he's got quite a talent, and I know he's been around celebrities. He told me that in New York a couple of years ago, he doesn't get starstruck with the actors, but he gets starstruck with athletes, which I find interesting because he's around them all the time in New York. But yeah, I hope to do another one of those again. So I'm proud of him. So I guess we have a little something in common. We've both been on the air in some way. In fact, one of my other friends was a child actress whose father was my dentist for many years. I think she did a couple of movies or something, or some commercials, and now she's a psychologist. She's actually on the air. CNN has her own show. So I mean, I've had a lot of influences. I mean, from child actors, but mostly for those who have been in my industry doing sportscasting or newscasting. That's what I mean by that. Again, getting back to that inspiring. You want to look up to somebody. We all have our role models, and in my family, I mean, a lot of my family are role models. I mean, I love what the kids are doing. They're making great lives of themselves. One's a designer, another was in business, and I think the other one wants to do some social work when she graduates. So, I mean, there are a lot of different career choices, but you got to be happy with what you're doing. If you're not happy at your job, it's just a job. It's got to be.
And I can see that you're very happy, and there's good money for people that work on the radio.
Not a lot. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're like a Howard Stern or something like that, I mean, obviously you make like millions, but nobody really gets rich though, Ernesto. I mean, you can make a good living, but I mean, very few people can be like making those six-figure jobs. It depends on what market you're in, what your title is. Very few do that, but to me, the money is not really the issue for me. It's just, do I love what I do? And as I said, I think the pandemic just reinforced that, honestly. I mean, because ever since I had to leave that job when COVID hit, it made me realize I had to be more concerned about my health, well-being. I think that goes without saying, Ernesto, but I'm still being able to do what I can, maybe not every day and have to go through the grind. But I had to go through a lot of adversity to get 30 years out of a career. I mean, most people don't last that long. Some people last maybe 3-4 years. That's been 30 plus. So I must have done something right along the way to keep going.
Yes, and I can see your enthusiasm.
Yeah. It's because you transmit a lot of feelings, enthusiasm. Maybe that's why you can be a good actor too.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done pretty well.
Transmit a lot of emotions.
Well, I mean, it is a form of acting. I think being on the radio. I mean, although you're using your own personality, but yeah, I think there's something to that. As you want to give them the impression that you know what you're talking about. Let's say when I'm doing the good news stories, I mean, I don't want to just read it. And I remember my host, called me out a few times. Just say, don't read it, just interpret this. Just tell me what you see. And I've been doing a lot better than that because I don't do it every day. And when I do that, I feel like I'm really getting into the story. Like, okay, I know what this is all about, and it comes out better. It's more conversational. That's really how it's supposed to be. A really good conversation, and in a very short period of time. I'd only get like maybe 5 minutes at the end of that show to do it. So I got to make the most of that time. 5 minutes is, that's precious time. You got to make every minute count. And that's what I do.
Have you think about the idea of insurance your voice?
Insurance? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Insurance your voice. Insurance for your voice. What happened if you lose?
If I lose my voice?
Yeah.
Well, thankfully that's not happened here. But the worst thing that can happen is if you have like laryngitis or something.
If you have a problem with your vocal.
That's never happened, but let's say if you have a cold that day, you don't sound as well. If you have a stuffed nose or something, then it doesn't sound so good. You're like nasally. That's happened. Sometimes I had to go to work and I wasn't feeling 100%, but I had to do the job anyway. And I did the best I could because they don't care if you're sick. They want to hear what's going on. That's true. It's still that way today. But I think a lot of people are, taking better care of their health. But with the hours I worked, I would work like say midnight to 6 sometimes. I used to work 2 in the afternoon to 12 at night covering meetings. I did all that. I've done every shift you can possibly imagine. Other than 24/7 maybe, but but now like I'm in a better place where I can balance out my life because I've done it long enough to do that. I paid my dues for it. I've been through so much. But I really appreciate all the years that I've put in, and I've never forgotten how I got in there and who helped me get there. Starting from Cushing, through the college years to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and now all the friends that I've met along the way in this industry, and stay connected with on Facebook or social media. I do that every day, and it's nice to I talk to a group of friends in Detroit every morning by Facebook. They do a show, and I chat with them, even though I don't actually see them. We used to do Zooms together, and they stopped doing it. But that gets me up every morning because I need something to look forward to, and some of them are really good friends of mine. They've gotten to know me. So it's kind of like another radio family. I talk about that too, by the way. Radio is like a second family. It's like you have your own nuclear family, and then you have, let's say, your work family. Especially I remember during the Westchester, New York years, 7 years I had that, I became close with a lot of people. I didn't like the owners, but the people I worked with in the building, I cared about them enough that they were like family. So in fact, there's actually a page on Instagram called the Radio Fam. They have radio stations all over the world. If you go on Instagram, check out their page, the Radio Fam. They've got stations from a lot of different countries, not just the US. And I follow that too. And I can post to that too. Let them know what we're doing when the show's coming up. And they actually use a lot of my stuff. I appreciate that.
Well,
Jim, and with this pandemic, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Alejandra, go. Well,
sorry, I believe that I have some trouble with my microphone. Sorry. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No, I just want to ask if you have one memorably or an special show that you remembered you did in the radio and you love it? One that you say, one I remember a lot, and this was one of my favorite programs or something like that.
Is it something that
you did?
Is this something that I did, like one particular show I did or where I listened to? Is that what the question was? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I can tell you a story about actually, it was a show, it was a podcast we did. And I was talking to somebody who was a colon cancer survivor. She was a 9-time survivor. She did a national commercial. She had to go through it 9 times and she had a baby. And I was interviewing her. I think her doctorate won a healthcare award. And the main focus was supposed to be the doctor, but then I talked to her who benefited from that doctor. And it was the most emotional interview. I mean, she was crying and everything else, talking about her survival. And I remember we talked afterwards. It was probably, I think, the most inspiring, most memorable story I've ever done, and the most emotion that I've gotten out of an interview I've ever done in my 31 years. And I told her that, so I've never experienced it like that. It just was magical. So I'd say that's probably one of the handful of the most memorable moments I've had in my 31 years in radio and my career. That particular interview, for what she went through, and now we're really good friends today. She's doing really well, but she has to keep going for screenings every day, unfortunately. But she's doing well. She's hanging in there. She's a lawyer, and she's doing well. I mean, she has I think 2 kids. But yeah, that was really the most memorable story I've ever been a part of, or at least best interview I had. I'll never forget it. 2017, I think, is when it happened.
Okay, your turn.
Yes, Jim. Do you think this pandemic is changing the way to produce a radio show? Because we know that a lot of TV shows were affected with this pandemic, but I'm not sure if the radio is suffering.
Well, I think it has, because in particular, when the pandemic hit, and a lot of people were working out of their regular studios. They had to work from home. They had to do Zoom like we're all doing right now. Everybody had to pivot. And before the pandemic hit, I was working outdoors a lot, doing a lot of different podcasts. And ever since then, we see a lot of people working from home, which is something I wanted to do more of anyway, without the commute. But I think the pandemic kind of accelerated that process, to be honest with you. And as far as the TV shows, I mean, we've seen like they were able to do all these protocols. Sometimes you see them in masks while this is going on. Somehow, I mean, they get tested. Mark he probably talked about that with his own show. I don't know if he's been on recently since that episode. But everybody's had to adjust, because when the shutdown happened, I mean, everything stopped. All your entertainment, sports, everything stopped. That was in March 12th of 2020. Life changes, we knew it. Hopefully not forever, but it sure feels that way. But yeah, they've had to adjust to spacing their guests out. People can't sit close together. They're 6 feet. They're social distancing. They're wearing their mask, the whole thing. But I'd say a lot of people have done a very good job, at least, of adjusting to not being in the studio so much. And who knows? I mean, like my friends in Detroit, one is in the main studio doing the engineering, and 2 others are doing it from home. And I don't see that changing necessarily for most people, but I mean, hopefully, if or when this pandemic ever ends, we'll see. But I think some of it has changed for the better, but it has been a real adjustment to pivot from, let's say, being all together in one studio and then people doing it from home. But it took a lot of work, and I really my hat's off to them, because it was not easy.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, I have another question, and is, do you, or well, your children want to be a radio, or want to be into the radio like you, or what they said about that?
No, well, actually, I have 3 kids, not for marriage. Actually, as an uncle, I have 2 nephews and a niece. No, they didn't want to do the radio. They wanted to. By the way, I'm kind of glad they didn't. I would have said no, because you don't want to follow through in my footsteps with what's going on today. I think I'm happy for them they didn't choose radio. But for me, that's what I wanted to do. But I'd say ever since '96, when things really radically changed with ownership, it has been a lot different. So I would say to any kid, I don't want to discourage anybody from not going after their dream. I mean, they can do it. I mean, I'd say that if you want to go to radio, you better maybe do podcasting or something along the line like that. You might be better off in the future, in the long run, because the way the owners are, they don't care about you. They're just bottom line. They just care about money, and that's all it is. And that's something that was pretty hard to swallow for me at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else?
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
And how you see yourself? You see yourself until retirement on the radio, or you are going to retire and do something else?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it's a good question you brought up, Ernesto, because when things shut down the way they did, and having to return home and not really go out, I mean, it felt like semi-retirement to me, like a sabbatical, like teachers do, unpaid leave, I guess. But well, I don't want to say retirement. I mean, I hope I can continue to do what I love, but maybe just not on a regular basis the way I used to. Because like I said, I mean, I want to think about my health right now, but you know, a lot of people, if they love what they do, I wouldn't really call it a retirement. I mean, retirement is doing something you love anyway. And I still get to do this. I mean, it's not as stressful as it used to be. I had a lot of that in my career, particularly in the news business years when I could be called at a certain time of the night and I have to come in and do something immediately. And that was a shock to the system. But nowadays, I mean, I think, you know, again, it's sad it took COVID to make this happen, unfortunately. But I think at the end of the day, when the smoke is clear, I think, you know, there is a silver lining in this dark cloud for that. And the fact that, you know, I've been able to concentrate more on my health, but occasionally still do the radio show. And as I said, if I can get this podcasting thing going, which I'll certainly let everybody know about, we'll post about it. I'm really looking forward to that if and when that day comes. You know, that'll be a real milestone for me. I'm excited about it, actually.
Okay.
And this is your first radio show, or
well, it'll be the first.
You have another ones before?
Well, this would be my first, technically my own first podcast. I'm working with a friend. Actually, it's a collaboration. We were talking about it actually even before COVID, even a few years ago. But he ended up working for somebody else, and they had a falling out with their relationship. They're actually both friends of mine, and he called me saying, "Hey, let's start our own." I mean, but this was 3 years ago. But now we can do it from home. But you know, as I said, what's only holding it up was because he had COVID and his wife had COVID. But we're eventually going to set it up. And we'll have guests. I mean, it kind of be, I don't want to say it's going to be like The Way Home, but I like to take some of the elements that I liked about that show and put it in and do it in my own style, my own way. Like I have a short list of people I want to talk to, and I'm sure he has his own list. And it'll probably be about I'm guessing maybe like 25 minutes to a half an hour, probably a week we'll do that. I think that's what's going to end up being. And like I said, and then we'll post it online, on social media, I'll talk about it. We'll have a page. I've got all that figured out pretty much, but I've just not been able to get it going yet. I'm just going to have to be patient. At some point, it's going to get started. I just don't know when.
Yes, that's important.
Okay, students, and Jim, I want to really thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having you here. I wish I had more students, but I guess I already told you that it's really holiday, so many people are traveling and they
don't worry about it.
Internet connection and things. Maybe some other day we can do something different, okay?
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, fellow Bagman.
Okay, students.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Jim, thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
And I hope, as I said, hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully I've inspired, some of you or one of you. I did, and I did my job. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Anytime you need to interview somebody here in Colombia, just let me know and you can interview us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can be a contact. I mean, I've got a lot of people in mind, so yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me.
Or in Mexico, if you want.
That's true. Yeah.
And you know what, Jim? After this meeting with you, I feel that I'm more excited. I'm enthusiastic. Like you transmit a lot of energy. So
good.
Right now,
glad I could do that.
I'm very enthusiastic. I don't know, because it's a lot of energy that you transmit with your speech.
See, even like a distance away on Zoom, I can even have that impact, even if we're not physically together. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good talk.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you a lot.
Have a good rest of the week. Enjoy your holiday.
Students. Okay, see you in class. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Be safe.
Bye. Have a nice night. Bye.
Bye.
God bless you.
Oh, gracias, Ernesto.
You're welcome. Ciao. Ciao, Alejandra. Ciao.
Bye. Adiós.
Ciao, Ana. Ciao, ciao. Ciao, Jim. Bye-bye.